If you ate this fruit before bed last night, you may have unknowingly pushed yourself one step closer to a stroke. And as a brain surgeon, I cannot stay quiet about this anymore. I've spent over 20 years of my life performing brain surgeries, hours inside operating rooms trying to save lives from one of the most terrifying medical emergencies a human can face, a stroke. And here's what absolutely floors me: many of those strokes could have been prevented. Not with fancy procedures, not with expensive medications, but by making a small change in what we eat. Especially one fruit that millions of Americans believe is healthy, but can actually increase your stroke risk overnight. We're not talking about some rare fruit you've never heard of. No, this is something you've likely got sitting in your kitchen right now. Something you might have eaten just this morning, thinking it was good for your heart or digestion. Let me tell you something. Strokes aren't just random events. They're not always something that happens because of old age. Most strokes I see don't just happen out of the blue. They build up quietly, day after day, choice after choice. And some of the biggest triggers are hiding in our diet, in plain sight. Now, here's the number that's hard to stomach. Nearly 800,000 Americans will have a stroke this year. That's one every 40 seconds. And sadly, nearly 130,000 of them won't survive. Even more will never walk or talk the same again. These aren't just numbers. These are fathers, mothers, grandparents, people who were living normal lives until one moment changed everything. And the worst part? For many of them, it all started with what they thought was a healthy diet. Let's talk about fruit. Yes, fruit. You've been told for decades to eat more of it. And in many cases, that's good advice. But not always. Not all fruit is created equal. Some are packed with nutrients that support brain and heart health. But others, especially fruit number 1 on my list, do the exact opposite when eaten the wrong way and at the wrong time. I'm talking about grapes. That's right, grapes. Green, red, seedless, organic, doesn't matter. These tiny little things are loaded with fructose, a type of natural sugar that hits your bloodstream fast. If you're over 60, have high blood pressure, diabetes, or even just mild cholesterol issues, your body doesn't process that sugar the same way anymore. So what happens? That sugar causes a spike. Your insulin scrambles to catch up, your blood vessels tighten, your inflammation rises, and if you eat grapes in the evening, especially after dinner, when your body is trying to relax and restore, it can actually increase the chance of clotting during the night. That's why we see strokes most often in the early morning hours. Now look, I'm not saying grapes are poison, but for the elderly, especially if eaten late in the day, they can be dangerous. Your brain is delicate. Every tiny blood vessel in your head is working 24/7 to keep oxygen flowing. A sudden spike in blood sugar from fruit like grapes can be the tipping point, especially in people with already fragile vessels. And it's not just grapes. Second on my list is watermelon. Summer favorite, right? It's refreshing, juicy, feels light, but it's another sugar bomb. People think it's mostly water, and it is. But the type of sugar in watermelon is rapidly absorbed. It causes a burst in insulin activity, and that's especially risky when your body is already tired, dehydrated, or on blood pressure meds. So you eat watermelon thinking it's a light snack, and hours later, your blood pressure drops too low, or your vessels swell in the wrong way. That sets the stage for stroke, particularly hemorrhagic strokes, which are among the most deadly. Third on my list, and this one surprises a lot of folks, is dried fruit. Raisins, dried apricots, dried cranberries. The drying process doesn't just remove water, it concentrates sugar. A handful of dried fruit can have the same effect on your blood sugar as a candy bar. But the packaging says natural, so it feels safe. But your brain doesn't care what the label says. It reacts to the load, not the claim. Now, you might be thinking, well, Doc, what can I eat then? Am I supposed to just cut out fruit altogether? Absolutely not. Fruit can be wonderful if you choose the right ones and you time them right. Here's what I tell my patients. If you want to support your brain and lower your stroke risk, eat berries. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, they're lower in sugar, high in antioxidants, and they actually help protect your blood vessels. Have them earlier in the day,
preferably before noon when your insulin sensitivity is better and your body is active. Another good choice is avocados. Technically a fruit, but without the sugar load. They're packed with healthy fats that protect the brain and stabilize blood pressure. A slice of avocado toast in the morning is way better than a bowl of grapes at night. And if you still love grapes, eat a few in the morning, after a glass of water, never on an empty stomach. Never before bed, and not every day. We have to start thinking about food not just as fuel, but as medicine or poison depending on how it's used. That's the message I wish I could whisper into the ears of every person lying on an operating table, every family in a waiting room praying for a miracle. And I'll tell you what breaks my heart most. Most strokes don't need to happen. They're not fate. They're not bad luck. They're often the result of small, avoidable choices, repeated over time. Choices we can change.
Now, if you're still with me, that means you care. And that alone puts you ahead of so many others. Because awareness, especially at your age, is powerful. You've seen enough life to know that small things build up over time. That's true in relation. So, you already heard about grapes, watermelon, and dried fruits, the top 3 fruits I warn my older patients about. But there's a fruit very often marketed as the healthiest thing you can put on your cereal bowl. It's bananas. Now I know what you're thinking. Bananas? Really? But they're high in potassium. Yes, they are. But here's the problem. Bananas also have a high glycemic index. That means they break down into sugar quickly in the body, especially when they're overripe. And let's be honest, most of us wait until they get soft and sweet. That's when the sugar content spikes. For someone over 60, especially if you're taking medication for blood pressure or cholesterol, that sugar load can mess with your vascular system. Your blood vessels are like tiny highways, and when traffic is flowing smoothly, everything works fine. But add in sugar spikes, and it's like throwing a sudden snowstorm into rush hour. Things clog up, pressure builds, and suddenly you're one clot away from disaster. And here's something that rarely gets said out loud. Potassium doesn't cancel out sugar. Yes, bananas have nutrients, but the high sugar can still push your insulin and blood pressure in the wrong direction. And that's exactly what leads to many strokes. Silent buildup over years, until one day, it breaks. Now, I'm not telling you to be afraid of fruit. I'm telling you to respect it. Nature gave us fruit, yes, but our modern lifestyle, being more sedentary, more medicated, and more inflamed, means our bodies react differently than they did 30 or 40 years ago. We can't eat the way we did when we were younger. Our vessels don't bounce back the same. Let me share this with you. During my residency, we saw stroke patients in their 70s and 80s. Now, I see folks in their 50s. And do you know what nearly all of them have in common? A diet that was supposed to be healthy, full of fruit juices, smoothies, granola bars, things with hidden sugars labeled as natural. Fifth on my list is something most people don't even think about: fruit juice. Orange juice, apple juice, even those little 100% juice bottles in the fridge section. These are worse than soda in many cases. Why? Because the fiber, the thing that slows down sugar, is gone. Drinking a glass of juice floods your system with sugar faster than your body can handle. That's a serious problem for your brain, which depends on a steady, gentle flow of blood, not sugar crashes, not surges. And yet, how many elderly folks are drinking a glass of orange juice every morning thinking it's doctor approved? Here's a simple shift. Eat the whole fruit, in small portions, earlier in the day. If you really want orange, eat a small orange, not a glass of juice. Keep the fiber. Eat it with some protein, like a boiled egg or a few almonds. That slows the sugar down and keeps your blood vessels calm. The truth is, you don't need a radical diet. You just need the right timing, the right pairings, and a bit of awareness. That's how you stay sharp. That's how you keep your independence and you're able to stay sharp. And if you're someone who's already had a TIA, a mini stroke, or if stroke runs in your family, this is urgent for you. Now, what should you eat more of? Start with leafy greens: spinach, kale, arugula. These are high in folate, which supports healthy blood flow to your brain. Pair that with healthy fats:
olive oil, walnuts, fatty fish like salmon, and you're giving your brain the support it needs to stay clear and focused. Drink more water. Dehydration thickens your blood, making clots more likely. A hydrated brain is a healthy brain. Cut back on the sugary fruits, but drink water throughout the day, not just when you feel thirsty. Snack on nuts instead of dried fruit. Keep a small bag of almonds or walnuts nearby. These help regulate blood pressure and reduce inflammation, especially when eaten instead of sugary snacks. And remember, movement matters too. You don't have to run a marathon. Just walking after meals helps regulate sugar and improve circulation to your brain. 10 minutes of walking after breakfast and lunch can lower stroke risk dramatically. Now listen, I've seen what happens when people don't get this message in time. I've had to look into the eyes of children and spouses and say, we did everything we could, but the damage was too great. And the worst part, knowing it could have been prevented. But I've also seen the other side. The 75-year-old woman who changed her breakfast habits and never had another TIA. The 82-year-old man who stopped drinking fruit juice, walked every morning, and is now still sharp enough to read stories to his grandkids. That can be you, right now, today. So here's what I want you to do. Take a look in your kitchen tonight. Look at your fruit bowl. Look at your fridge. Ask yourself, am I helping my brain or hurting it? Start small. Swap the late-night grapes for a cup of herbal tea. Replace juice with water and lemon. Trade the banana for a small handful of berries and a spoon of peanut butter. These aren't sacrifices. They're investments in your brain, your future, and your ability to stay independent and sharp for the years ahead. And if you found this helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. A neighbor, a friend, a family member, someone else may be one fruit away from a stroke too. You might just save their life. Take care of your brain. You only get one.